What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? You are on the sidelines with the Sideline Guys, and today we are unfortunately joined again by my brother in arms, a jack o' lantern in disguise at the start of summer. My guy, a man mysterious, yet most importantly, duplicitous. My guy, the one and only Sean Negron. How's it going? The white Johnny Bravo. How you feeling today, brother?
Dude, that's crazy that you just said that at the end because that's the fifth person who has said Johnny Bravo to me in the last like 24 hours. And I don't get it because this is not like Johnny Bravo hair. He had the curl and he had blonde hair, so
Mm-hmm.
not really understanding it. And he didn't have this fake beard thing that I don't have going.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really understanding it. Granted, and he was also great shape, like over body. I'm not in great shape, so I'm not understanding this whole Johnny Bravo
Hey,
thing.
bro, I would take it as a compliment. You know what I'm saying? There's not.
You're not saying it as a compliment. You're
Hey,
you're
bro.
you're throwing that quick jab, like you're just a tiny jab. No one saw it. That's what you're throwing. You're
Hey,
not
bro.
throwing it as a compliment.
If you want to get depressed, I had someone call me Heavy D the other day when I was walking around. He said, "Hey, have you ever seen Heavy D? You look just like him."
Damn.
Damn, bro.
Well,
Damn.
what'd
So
you
you
say?
have no right. I'm complimenting you, motherfucker, and you
Yeah,
out here thinking
you
this.
really weren't. You really weren't though.
Okay, okay. But we say all this to say we're excited to have my guy back to be talking some
Yes,
MMA. Of course, we have UFC 302, the granddaddy of them all, on the horizon in my guy's stomping grounds in New Jersey. You know, shout out to the Prudential Center, Brick City, the home of the Portuguese mafia. We
yeah.
are going to be live on Saturday from Newark, and I'm excited for it. I will not be in the building because this entire country has gone to shit. But with all that's being said, why don't you let the people know where they can find you first and foremost?
Oh yeah. Another week goes by, and you will not find Chris at bsreports.org because that's where I'll be. And as we continue to wait another year to 2 years for that upcoming article, he says uh, he's been writing and almost done, and it's done. Whenever you're ready, you can go there, bsreports.org, or find me at Sean Negron26 on Twitter. And if you ever want to get involved in sports writing or sports in general, uh, hit me up and I will help you out.
You heard the man. You could also find me on Twitter and the TikTok machine and Negrong MMA. And you could also find me as well on Instagram at Chris Negrong underscore. But most importantly, make sure you're following the brand at OTS Media on all social media platforms, OTS Media Co. on YouTube. But with that all being said, dude, I am excited. We had a lackluster card last week that somehow you celebrated graciously about.
That's right.
Um, we finished the week in rough shape, both of us. You did a little bit better than I did, though. I went 6-6, and you went 7-5. That brings me to a still comfortable lead of 134 wins, 76 losses, 3 draws, up against your 132 wins, 77 losses, 3 draws, and our head to head in the dynasty went your way. Unfortunately, this week I went 1-1. You went 3-1, bringing our totals on the season to 50, 37, and 3 for me, and 53, 3-1 for you. No, I lied. 3-1. Imagine 31-1. But you are ahead on the percentage points, of course, for the year, with our dynasty rankings sitting at a similar position where I have 97 wins and 61 losses with 2 draws and 4 no contests, while you are sitting at 99 wins, 61 losses, 1 draw, and 1 no contest, where you lead by 1 percentage point. So we are grinding, baby. Unfortunately, as of right now, dynasty is being dominated by Sean. I can admit that. Your lead is not large on the dynasty overall, but in the head to head this year, it's gonna take a lot for me to turn this ship. So, how are you feeling about the way things sit currently on May 30th?
Oh, I feel great because you talked a lot of shit saying that there was no shot that I would even have any chance against you. That was like what you said the first time we ever did it. And it just goes to show that, I'm better than you and I'm going to continue to
Oh,
be better. And I told you about this like 2 or 3 months back that I'm just going to let you like have a taste, hey, yo, pause, of
mhm.
feeling like you're number one. But then I'm going to take it away. I'm going to be like, hey, yeah, you're sticking close, because I don't want you to quit the show too early. I want to get a couple years, in, make you think that you have a chance, and then just eventually take off, and then you'll quit the show, and you'll do what you got to do. But I think that's what I'm slowly building right now. I'll let you win some weeks. Maybe you'll take the lead. I'll come back, but right now I'm staying a little comfortable in the dynasty. Thank you for that whole percentage thing. Shout out to you. And then in the pickums, I won last year. I'm about to win again this year. I'm letting you have like a little bit of a lead, and then I'm gonna take it back.
I love it, man. There's not an ounce of humility in this man. He's gonna hop on this mic and talk some ludicrous shit every time. But I'll let you have it for now because I cannot wait. As soon as I get a chance, I'm gonna be shoving this shit down your throat, no pause. So we are excited and looking forward to UFC 302. Um, is there anything we want to say about last week's card, the UFC Hellscape 13,012? I asked you earlier off camera, uh, who won in the co-main event, and you told me you had no idea who even fought in the co-main event. So, is there
First,
anything you
I
want
didn't
to
say
say?
that. All right, I know Chaos Williams won
Oh,
because I
ah,
bet him. All right, you went with Harris. All right, let's not forget. All right,
yeah.
I picked
Technology
Chaos,
helped you out with this one for sure.
and of course, I won again. You see what I'm talking about here? This is what I'm talking about. Like you think you try to come at me with these slick little jabs, thinking I don't know. Yeah, I worked 3 jobs. Sometimes I can't remember in the moment, but here I am remembering that co-main event and also remembering I beat you in that co-main event by
Hey,
picking Chaos. And it was just another one like the week before where you did that whole, yo, I can't believe you picked that guy. That was wild. All right, this is another one of those instances where you talked shit and then I came in and got the dub. All right, so and I won in the week and I won in Dynasty. So if anything, you should be bowing to me for last week and the week before. But
hey,
you know
listen,
what? I get
this
it.
in a mid-off like last week, right? If anyone took a W, somebody had to do it, right? Somebody had to take a
I'm glad
W.
I got
Is
the
this the
slight
W
dub.
you celebrate like this?
That's
Is
right.
this the
Every
W? All right.
week is a W.
All right,
I
I
don't
can't
care
wait
if
to
I get one
can't
win,
wait
as
to
long
look
as
at
you
this
get
one.
zero.
All right. Well, with this spirit in tow, motherfucker, let's get right into this UFC 302 breakdown, starting in the bantamweight division. I hope that's correct. We've got Andre Lima minus 260, the man that got bit last week. I'm not last week, the last time he fought, going up against Mitch Raposo on short notice plus 220. Um, this has to be at the bantamweight division because this is a late minute fight. And if I'm not
I
mistaken,
don't think
Mitch
so.
Raposo fights in the bantamweight division. Am I making this up? Is this
I
crazy?
feel this is flyweight, is it not? You could be right,
It has to be because this is a short
but
minute fight, late notice fight, and Mitch Raposo usually fights at 135.
I could have sworn that they were both fighting in flyweight for this one.
You might be right, bro. I'm checking, but something
Yeah,
about
yeah,
my
check.
heart, something about my heart just doesn't sit right.
I know the fans who are watching right now are screaming that
Yeah,
this
this
is
is
a flyweight.
terrible. Oh yeah, this is flyweight. How is this?
Another, just add this to another dub
How
for
is
me.
this flyweight though?
You
How?
see what I'm saying, guys? I know, I know you guys can't hear me, or I mean, you can hear me, but I can't hear you. But you see what I'm talking about? How just the dubs just keep adding up. This is just one of those moments.
Yeah,
Just wanted to.
it's not as if Mitch
You guys
Raposo's
just
last
saw
fights
this
have
in
all been
live
at
time.
bantamweight. All been at bantamweight. Oh
Hmm?
man, I want to kick this guy's ass so bad, bro. I can't wait. I can't wait till I see you, bro. It's gonna be great. Um, I'll start because why the fuck not? This guy is
That's
all
right.
over the place. Shout out to Andre Lima. I enjoyed his last fight against Igor Severino thoroughly, man. That was a great fight. Picked against him in that one. I looked a fool, right? Because the guy just absolutely got DQ'd out of there for getting bit the fuck. Like, I cannot articulate any more how strange of a moment this was to watch, especially in the moment, but now even double on the rewatch. Like, man, you could argue Severino was winning this fight. And then you go out there and fucking bite this guy. Insane stuff. Tide definitely was turning at the beginning of that second round, though, and he got rocked. Maybe that leads to that primal moment. Who the fuck knows? But overall, you can't hate on Lima for that performance. I thought he had a great showing, landing some spectacular strikes, especially those lead step in elbows, which did a lot of damage to Igor Severino. But in this matchup, he's going up against Mitch Raposo. As I mentioned before, this is a short notice fight. So I think that definitely plays into how we look at this fight as a whole. But I may be surprising Sean by this because I know that this guy has a hard time when it comes to being challenged to look into the past, right? Mitch Raposo is one of those guys that it's been a long time coming for him to make it to the UFC. Someone that's been on the Ultimate Fighter, someone that has been around on the cusp of making his run, but just keeps getting knocked just short of making it. And it's good to see him be able to make his way this time via short notice opportunity. When it comes to both of these guys' skills, I have to lead with the fact that I am going to be making the pick of the underdog, Mitch Raposo here. I think both of these guys are very solid and sturdy, but what I think gives Mitch Raposo the edge here, all things considered, I just think that Mitch Raposo is a much more explosive athlete of the two. And I think that the way that he fights is very much so a catch and pitch style where he really lets guys lead. And then once they start, it's almost like one of those flinch contests, right? Where you're waiting, and as soon as you get the sign that they're moving, you're throwing your own combinations. And I think Mitch Raposo, much more so than Andre Lima, throws in combination and could build around versus from what I feel from watching Andre Lima's style, he very much so is a opportunistic fighter, whether it's on the feet or on the ground. And he's someone that will really snatch up a victory versus build towards a victory. He sort of needs to have that big moment to start avalanching on you, while I feel that Mitch Raposo has the stronger punches and also is a little bit more disciplined with his combination strikes. Now, if there's an area of weakness or an area of concern here for me, is definitely Andre Lima's guard. I think if Mitch Raposo ends up getting any top control here, um, it will serve him, especially on short notice, to just try to maintain control versus really overworking himself in these positions. I think Andre Lima is someone that can definitely surprise a lot of guys with his submission prowess, but ultimately constantly working towards something. Um, and when you're fighting somebody with a guard like that, that's just waiting to see what's going to stick and throwing things up constantly, in my opinion, you got to look to get damage in those positions, but also keep yourself safe. I think that is where Andre Lima's path to victory lies. But I think as long as this one lasts on the feet, Mitch Raposo should be able to cruise to a unanimous decision victory. How you feeling, Sean?
I like this. I like right out the gate. We're gonna have different picks. So I'm picking Lima, and the one thing is, like, if this was a full training camp fight for both, I probably would agree with you more. I do think though that with Raposo, obviously, we've seen him in the Contender Series, which is crazy now. It feels like it was like last year, but I think it's even longer than that. But and the Contender Series. Now that I think about it, Ultimate Fighter and the Contender Series. Huh. But I do think the one thing that bothers me with Prozo is the fact that he's kind of, to me, I feel basic. Like, I feel like I know what he's throwing when he's on the stand up. Like, I don't think this fight goes to the ground at all. I think this is going to be a stand up between two guys. But the one thing that Raposo does is kind of that 3-punch combo where it's kind of he's always fading right, and he's always throwing like a wide right hand, and it's kind of something that you get very used to. I was watching clips of his last fight. I think he threw it like 14 times from what I was counting. So it kind of just showed to me that even though this is a big opportunity, and you could change not camps, you could change styles, and different fighter, you're going to go in a different way into camp. But I feel that this one is more of like Lima just waiting for the onslaught to happen and kind of being not like a counter guy, but just kind of waiting for the opportunity to happen and then take advantage. And I think that's why I lean more Lima here. I think Mitch is going to be very attack first to start. Kind of feel it out maybe the first 30 seconds, but I do feel Mitch could win the first round because he'll be more active. But I do see a situation where Andre counters him, but just kind of waits him out. And then to me, I have Lima winning by knockout in the second round, and because I just find a situation, or TKO, I guess. I see a situation where Lima finally does connect with one that forces Mitch to back up, and that's where the onslaught goes for Lima. And I think in this particular situation, I think this is Lima's fight to lose more than Mitch's to win, and that's why I'm picking Lima here.
I like it. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say there's no way this fight sucks. Like both of
No,
these
no.
guys are willing to go out there and really take it to their opponents. So this fight early on, we in my opinion, we got a lot of fights that are going to give us some momentum, right? And hopefully stoke the violence in the building so it continues to build as the night goes on. Next up, we are heading to a very important matchup. A rivalry is going to be settled in the octagon. I'm sure all the people at home are aware, but if you are not, there was a big fight at the UFC Performance Institute between these two women that led to Eileen Perez's significant other and coach choking Jocelyn Edwards out, which makes you wonder who's getting the best in this exchange. But we've got Jocelyn Edwards minus 180 going up against Eileen, the king of twerk herself, Perez, plus 165. Sean, this is the only way you care about women's MMA when ass is involved. So why don't you give us a full breakdown? Who you got and why?
Wow, man. Again with the slights, but I am picking Perez here. Um, I think this is as much as I think it's a little bit scary for Perez because Edwards is a much longer fighter in striking, and I don't consider Perez's striking to be all that great. I do see Perez's bread and butter, as we just kind of mentioned, being in the wrestling and the grappling game, and I think Edwards struggles in that regard, and I think it'll be very difficult in the beginning to get that takedown, but I don't see it being impossible for 15 minutes. And then I think once it goes to the takedown, I really see that's where Perez takes her advantage, and then we're going to see some pretty nasty ground and pound. And honestly, I see this kind of getting finished by TKO either via ground pound or even I could even see a submission, but I think this is a little bit more on the personal side. So I could see this going to TKO, some nasty elbows getting thrown in there, and being finished on the ground for Perez.
I love it, man. This is a tough fight to break down, right? I think there's a lot of different angles and ways we could go about this, but I think something that makes this fight particularly tough is Jocelyn Edwards is coming off of a performance where I thought um, a lot of things got to her and she underperformed, but I also thought she kind of got robbed on the scorecards with it being a unanimous 30-27. I thought those rounds were a lot closer than people imagine. Um, and she fought a much better opponent. But Eileen Perez's last fight against Lucy Pudilova, obviously much more impressive when you consider the way the fight went, but also when you consider um, the competition, it kind of makes you slighted as well. So I don't know. It's a very strange position to look at both of these ladies momentum wise. But stylistically, I think Jocelyn Edwards is a much better striker. I think the more this one stays at range, the more damage she could do, particularly to the legs of Eileen Perez, which could definitely be um, a tough route. But the more footage I watched of Jocelyn Edwards, I need to add the cakes are also there, right? This is a two-sided cheeked up matchup, right? That we got to clarify this. Um, but in all seriousness, Jocelyn Edwards gets caught often in the clinch and in positions that I can't really quite tell whether or not she really enjoys being in the clinch because she keeps on constantly ending up there, or she hates working on the fence at all. Because every time we end up in these scenarios, it typically doesn't end up going in her favor in these exchanges, but yet we somehow keep ending up here. Um, and I think that's what ultimately had me leaning with Eileen Perez in this matchup too. I think despite the advantages that Jocelyn Edwards has on the feet, I just feel like she constantly ends up in that position. And Eileen Perez, in my opinion, has a much stronger center of mass when it comes to the grappling phases as a whole. Um, and being able to get under Jocelyn Edwards pretty easily, in my opinion, in those clinch positions is going to lead to a lot of different moments where Jocelyn Edwards just looks frustrated against the fence. And I feel like a lot of her fights play out that way too. So if Jocelyn Edwards could keep this one at range for a majority of the fight, I think she wins this fight pretty easily. But especially when you consider the bad blood between these ladies, I just feel like we're gonna end up in a messy entanglement of a fight. And I think the more clinched up we get, the more it favors Eileen Perez. Anything else to say on this one before we move on, Sean? Yeah, look at this. He's got basil in his mouth right now, so it's only right we move on to the welterweight division where we have Mickey Gall at plus 320 going up against Basil Hafez. You see what I did there? Transitions, you know what I mean? Because people are eating during the show. I would that would be nice. I would love to have a snack here, but hey, we've got Mickey Gall making his long awaited return after not being in the octagon for quite some time now, against someone who looked so impressive debuting against Jack Della Maddalena, but obviously also debuting in a loss, right? So, um, interesting dynamic on that front. I've tried to buy my co-host as much time as I possibly could. So why don't you let the people know how you're feeling about this welterweight fight? Because I just flipped it on you again. Why didn't I?
I know. I like that. I like how you keep me on my toes here. I thought you were gonna go first because I went first in the last fight, but it's all good. I like it. Um, no, man, this is shout out to CM Punk, man. Shout out to CM Punk. Every time I see Mickey Gall's name, I have to shout him out because of what an awesome fight that was when his debut happened. So glad that that was a thing. But I give more of a shout out to I'm not going to say any names here, right? So Basil, if was I right there? All right, thank God. So I give a lot of credit to Basil here because that fight against Jack was so out of the blue for him to make his debut and actually put up such a great fight. And the thing was, striking wise, I do think that Gall might have the advantage here, but it's from what I've seen 3 years ago, so it's been a while. But I do think that, like I said before, I think the bread and butter sticks to the wrestling and the grappling. And while Gall is a BJJ fighter and it's pretty good, I do think that this is one where Hafez kind of locks him up, and this is one where I'm honestly very surprised that I'm even seeing Gall still wearing UFC shorts. Like I wanted more from him when he beat CM Punk. Like after he beat Mike Jackson that one time, and then he beat CM Punk. I was like, he just beat the bottom of the barrel. He's this up and coming guy. I thought there was something there, and then it just never turned out. He was always the win one, lose one, win one, lose one, and it just never panned out for the UFC or him. But he could be a completely brand new fighter since it's been all this time. So it's something we'll see. But I'm taking Basil or Basil.
Mr. Basil, if that's what we're gonna call him. God damn it. Yeah, there isn't a lot to really say about this fight. I'm gonna be real. I'm not trying to disrespect Mickey Gall. I just think the level of competition that he fought in Jack Della Maddalena and what he was able to accomplish, to say he's a bad striker, don't get me wrong, he got outstruck thoroughly, right? Especially as the fight went on longer. But to be able to stay in there against someone that has the fucking firepower that JDM has, and effectively continue to get takedowns in a matchup that on coming in on short notice, like I just cannot take that for granted. I cannot overlook that in a matchup where, like you said, we're watching someone return after a long layoff. And previous to that layoff, uh, you've been on such a big slide, right? You lost to Alex Morono, okay, and then got knocked out by Mike Malott, which is a loss that also ages poorly. I just think skill wise, obviously, we have seen Mickey Gall develop in the UFC. There's no doubt about that. So for people trying to say that he's the same or that he should have never been in the UFC, he definitely developed. But I always felt like you said, I wanted to see that next level from him that you see, um, because he started at such a low level prospect wise in the UFC. You expected that potential to sort of catch up with the athlete at some point. Um, and it could very well be this moment, right? I think if he goes out there and he looks like a brand new fighter and is able to really have a lot of strong effect and influence on the feet and hurt Basil, I can't necessarily say that would be surprising. But what would surprise me in that exchange is if he's landing against Basel and then completely negating and nullifying his takedowns. That will be fully shocking to me, because even as his time and tenure in the UFC, even as his striking has gotten better, he's always been known as a grappler, but not necessarily as a wrestler. And we've seen Basil work as a fucking wrestler against someone in this division that you could argue maybe easier than most at 170 to take down, but is determined and dogged about making his way back up to his feet. We saw that in his comeback win against my guy, one of my favorites, Gilbert Durinho Burns. So that was a great win for JDM. Enough talking about JDM. We're talking about this fight. I think Basil Hafez, overall, just being the more seasoned competitor at this stage of their careers, is going to give him a lot of an advantage, in my opinion, against Mickey Gall in this matchup. I think Mickey Gall is definitely going to um, have a lot on his hands here. So I think ultimately, no matter how this one plays out, I think if Mickey Gall comes out on top, it'll probably be a jaw-dropping moment for me, at least. I don't know about anybody else at home. It'll be pretty surprising for me. I think we're also in a unique position where a lot that Mickey Gall can show can be surprising for us, right? So I think that's puts us in a little bit of a weird spot, but I'm confidently picking Basil Hafez here, and I'm excited for his prospects in this division.
I am amazed at how much you just talked about Mickey Gall just now, because I was trying to find things to say because it's been so long. But I'm glad that you just gave a full analysis of him and this fight, because you did a much better job than I did. I'll give you that one.
Wow, look at that. And just like that, it's only right we move forward to the welterweight division. We've got Nico Price minus 226 going up against the great white hope that we just spoke of, the Mickey Gall Slayer, Alex Morono at plus 210. Um, I love both these guys, right? Can I say that off rip? This might be a hot take. This might be a side eye, you're a degenerate take, but god damn it, I love both these guys. I think Nico Price has some of the strangest collarbones in the game, right? This guy looks like he can cut you with those things. Um, I don't know why that sticks out to me every time I watch him fight, but it's always so strange to me to look at. Like, it really sharp edges there you have. But Alex Morono, one of the least sharp-edged physiques in the UFC, but someone that always brings it cardiovascularly and never looks behind as an athlete, despite um, clearly making his bones with his technique and what's in between his eyes. Um, I'm a big fan of how both these guys win. I think it's so opposite of each other. I think Nico Price is the definition of brute force. Um, and just absolutely going out there, being shredded, being a Florida man, and just fucking dominating, right? While Alex Morono is someone that needs to be steps ahead and plays it out sort of like a chess match. I think that's how this one is going to go too. Honestly, a little surprised to see Nico Price as such a big favorite here in this one, considering their trajectory at the moment. But I can also say there's a very clear and distinct athletic advantage for Nico Price. What makes me a little bit worried, though, obviously, we saw him recently getting put out by Robbie Lawler. Um, Obviously Alex Morono shouldn't have that same level of power, but you also have to question the chin when you get put out like that by someone who, frankly, let's be real, wasn't necessarily knocking a lot of guys out before that fight. So um, I think ultimately this is those matchups that does put Alex Morono in a rough spot, and he ends up sort of getting run over in just because of the athletic disparity. So especially stylistically, since that's what Nico Price is looking to do out there, he's looking to roll over his opponents. I think this really plays into his favor in that case. So I'm picking Nico Price, but I will not be surprised if we see Alex Morono go out there and just absolutely be the younger vet in this one and win the decision. But I just think his athletic ceiling, unfortunately, lets him down in this one.
See, this one, like, I feel like this card has a lot of like former names that were like up and coming, I guess, sort of say, or guys you paid attention to like a good 5, 7 years ago. And these two guys I remember very, very clearly because I'm a big Donald Cerrone fan. And both these guys fought him back to back and beat Donald Cerrone on his way towards his 7 straight losses and retirement. So this hurts for me to choose a winner. Um, and listen, I came in here with full intentions of picking Nico here because I felt he had to avenge that loss to Robbie Lawler. I was as surprised, I think, as anybody to see it end that quickly, just like that. Even Nico, when he got up and woke up, he was like, "I'm sorry, I couldn't, fight you longer," because that to me was so surprising. I think I even picked Nico to win that fight. I think you picked Robbie to win that fight, and we ended up watching it together. And while that has now shifted me because Alex Morono is one of the greatest. Like, I'll fight this on short notice and win. He's done it like 3 or 4 times in his UFC tenure, and he's won like 3 out of the 4, including Donald Cerrone when he came in on 4 days' notice and just beat the brakes off of him, which broke my heart. But I can't take Nico's chin and look the other way. I think Nico is definitely on a downward spiral. While Alex Morono too has had his ups and downs. While he just beat another guy, which is so funny to talk about, Court McGee. That dude's been around forever, and I don't know why. And the fact that Alex Morono just beat him, and he's kind of on a little bit of a higher trajectory at this current moment in time. I do think that Nico is much more powerful, and it's just going to be guns blazing, like kind of what you were saying. I do think that Alex Morono's 1-2 is going to be the one that eventually will connect. And I do fear Nico's chin at that point. I do see him dropping one or two times throughout this fight. I do see it being a massive advantage for Morono, especially if it goes towards the grappling. Even though I don't think this will stay grappling, I do think that if it does, I think Morono is a huge advantage here. And if it stays standing, like I predict, I do think eventually, once you get to that second and third round, Morono will be more of the unorthodox but more technical fighter here. And I do see him winning by unanimous decision. So give me Morono.
If I ever thought someone was an Alex Morono hater, god damn it, it would have been Sean. So that is a surprising pick for me at least. Let's see how that one works out for us, brother. But just Something funny that I thought I'd add there. You picked Robbie Lawler, and I picked Nico Price in that one. So
Really?
interesting to see how that one
Wow.
fell. Yeah.
I am proud of me, even though I doubted myself just now. I am proud of me because you know what? Shout out to Robbie. Hope you're doing good
Wow.
up over there.
Wow. How dare you? He's not anywhere near dead, but we
I
love
know
you, Robbie Lawler.
his brain might be, but shout out to you, brother.
Hey, bro, that no, we're not doing that here, okay? No,
I'm
not
getting
Robbie,
canceled. I'm
not Robbie.
sorry.
We could do that about a lot of guys, okay? Not Robbie Lawler. Next up, we've
Oh
got
shit.
Phil Rowe, the Fresh Prince himself, plus 136. Uh, the closest thing we have to Will Smith lookalike in the UFC. We've got Jake Matthews minus 160 in a battle for the two people that really need to live up to their potential already. God damn it. So I think matchmaking wise, this was a really cool head to head matchup, but also in my opinion, this is where the card really takes off, at least for me. So, Sean, why don't you lead the dance and let the people know who you got in this welterweight matchup?
Well, this is I'm so glad you just said that last part because these two guys, this card, like I said before, is kind of a lot of names back then that had a lot of hype behind them, and like we're still seeing them here in 2024. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing with regarding these two guys, but how many times have I mentioned Jake Matthews on this show? You know, like he was the up and coming guy. He was supposed to be the next big thing. You know, he came up young. It didn't necessarily work out, but I think his last fight was against Michael Morales, if I remember correctly. And to me, while I think Rowe has a clear advantage in the striking, I think Matthews will find a way to keep this very, very close within each other. And I do think Matthews can build off his wrestling and his career of being a wrestler. And I think while he's got a strong wrestling base, I do find this one being more standing up. I think this is one where this is like a career turner for both of them. Like I think this is whatever happens to either of these guys is kind of like a one last shot for you here. Like okay, you won. We'll give you one more go. And if you don't, this is kind of where we kind of write you off. Like we've given you everything we could throughout all the years. So for me, I think Rowe is longer. I think he has the advantage here when it comes to striking, but I don't see him really striking at range. Like he doesn't. He he just fights at a very different pace, and I think Matthews is going to be one to capitalize here when it comes to, like I said, with keeping this fight close distance and using the grappling and the wrestling here. And to me, while I do think this is a fight that stands up for the majority, I have a sneaky suspicion here that this is one where Matthews is a better striker than he was back then, and we're going to see something new from Jake Matthews here. And as much as like I don't feel comfortable with either of these guys at this current moment because of what I was supposed to see to now, I do feel even with the Michael Morales fight that was a good fight, and I think that he could capitalize that here and get a victory off Phil. So I'm taking Matthews by UD.
Oof, I love that, man. This is a once again, there's so many different ways I could go about this. So I'm gonna try to be quick, but also brief because I want to talk about both of these gentlemen. Jake Matthews is someone that once again, the potential is still so sky high. I think even now, he still can be looked at almost as a prospect. Despite being around for this long, he's still very young, still on the right side of the age curve when it comes to this division. So, um, against someone like Phil Rowe, who has shown to be extremely hungry, right? Like if there's anything that Phil Rowe has shown, it's his hunger. I mean, competing in grappling matches against people like Craig Jones, like he's out there trying to get experience no matter what the cost is. On top of in his fights, you could really see, man, this guy I agree. He doesn't take full advantage of his physical gifts, especially his range. But this guy puts his fucking heart out there every single one of his fights. Like, there's no doubt this guy's gonna be probably the one still advancing and still trying to make something happen, regardless the stage of the fight. Phil Rowe is someone that really, really brings it and forces a lot of dirty exchanges. And what fascinates me about this fight is I think Jake Matthews has all the skills to be the young veteran here, to be the guy who looks at the last couple of fights for Phil Rowe and can really spot the deficiencies in the grappling, especially against the fence, and try to find a game plan where you're really nullifying a lot of Phil Rowe's offense, right? You're putting him in a position where he can't really get comfortable on the outside because he has a lot of different things to worry about in the interim. I think if Jake Matthews can be a really disciplined vet in this fight and approach this as if um almost like he did in his last fight, right? Because the same danger doesn't exist. Don't get me wrong. Phil Rowe is a very good striker and can certainly hurt Jake Matthews here. Um, but the way he fought a disciplined performance against Michael Morales leads you to believe he can do the same against Phil Rowe. Now, I'm going to be picking Phil Rowe here. And my reasoning is I think that as things go later on in the fight, as this becomes a more disgusting clinch bout and everyone starts getting a little bit more tired, I just feel like Phil Rowe is going to be willing to do more out there in a crowd. Something I think that's important to remember too. But obviously, everyone wants to be in a crowd. But Phil Rowe has barely competed in front of crowds in his career, so I think having this opportunity definitely going to help him in that way. Um, I definitely am not 100% confident in this pick. A little bit of a vibes one here. I sort of came into this one leaning in towards Jake Matthews, um, and I don't think I necessarily have proof that Phil Rowe um, can go above a lot of the things that Jake Matthews does performance wise. But I just can't shake the proof that I have of Jake Matthews falling out of the game plan in some of his previous fights and end up being caught and having to pay the price for it. So I'm going with Phil Rowe here, but I'm really excited for this fight, and I think a lot of these, excuse me, both of these guys can surprise us in a lot of different ways, which makes this an exciting one to look forward to. So we're on the opposite side once again. God damn it! And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But we're moving on to the lightweight division where we've got Grant Dawson going up against Joe Selecki, a huge favorite, minus 450 to Joe Selecki's plus 380. Now, I think this one is a perfect bounce back fight for Grant Dawson, right? Perfect bounce back fight. We're going to give you a grappler after you just got knocked out by Bobby Green because we don't want that for you, right? We don't want this momentum. The fact that they gave him this fight, in my opinion, speaks a lot to how they view him. I think they really want him to make another push in this division, and I feel like they were shocked by that outcome just based on who they gave him here. Um, I want to see Grant Dawson the striker in this fight. I think if you're gonna go out there and fucking make something of yourself. God damn it. This is the fight to fuck around and find out, right? This is the fight to okay, I'll see you on the feet. I'll do some timing things and then I'll find my way into my level changes. This is the fight to fuck around with that. You're fighting someone that obviously can crack you, has cracked people in the UFC, but isn't really known for that and is also looking to grapple, right? Where I think Grant Dawson is a little bit more agile. I think he's someone that in the transitional phases, he can definitely find himself sweeping and getting on top of someone like Joe Selecki. I think obviously you don't want to see Joe Selecki getting his offense off in those phases. I think if he gets particularly on Grant Dawson's back, he could have trouble there. But with the way we see Grant Dawson dominate from back control, I can't imagine that he isn't good there defensively. I mean, we haven't really seen it, right? That's the problem. Um, I think this is the fight where we find out whether or not Grant Dawson can be a real contender or not. And I know that sounds very dramatic, right? But I think as someone in his position, if you don't find a way to work on your striking in this fight and you go out there and you just get them down and you submit them and you look great, trust me, a lot of people are going to be praising you. But at the end of the day, those are not the skills that you need to fix based off of what just happened. And in a matchup like this, they gave you a lot of room to figure that out so that when you're fighting someone that can really hurt you, you know you're going to want to go out there and grapple them no matter who you're fighting. but you need to be comfortable enough to execute your skills to make them respect that threat. And we haven't really seen that yet from Grant Dawson in a consistent manner, at least. So I said a lot about Grant. I think Joe Selecki can surprise a lot of people here, and that's what he should be looking to go out there to do. I think he's fast when he gets going, but I think unfortunately once he throws longer in combination past that second and third strike, it just gets a little messy out there, right? It gets a little wild. I think that can play into his advantage against someone like Grant Dawson. I won't expect these guys to be anxious of the grappling though. Like I think this one is going to show us something about both of these guys striking and where it's headed. But I think both of them are going to be willing to engage in the grappling phases, which should make this a fun fight. I'm going with Grant Dawson. Um, I'm going with Grant Dawson by submission. But I won't be surprised if this fight is absolutely terrible and they negate each other in a lot of ways. And it ends up just being sort of a swing first and let's see who hits each other cleaner kind of fight. And even in those scenarios, I don't really have a clear picture of who wins this. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going Grant Dawson, but feels a little strange to be this big of a favorite. How you feeling, Sean?
Honestly, it kind of sucks because you said a lot of what I was trying to say. I think it could negate each other because both are so good with the BJJ and the grappling and the wrestling that I see a situation where if Selecki could find a way to get him into a submission, then I obviously it's very easy to go with Selecki here. But I do think that this is a fight, and it's a fight that the UFC wants to continue to promote this guy, like you said. And I think this is a perfect opportunity. Like I feel like I'm just saying what you're saying, is to get Dawson striking. Like to see more of Dawson striking because no one expected him to lose in his last fight. I think the thing is with Selecki is that he doesn't strike really at all. I don't see Selecki as a striker that much. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to see what Grant can do in the stand up. And then I don't see a situation, even if this does go to the ground, which it 95% will, I don't see a situation where Grant does allow Selecki to get him into these submission type situations. And to me, I think that this is more of, like I said earlier, this is Dawson's fight to lose. Like I I think the odds minus 450 are a little crazy, but I would be okay if this was minus 250 or even minus 300. Like I do think this is one where the UFC is just trying to get him not a striker, get him a win, kind of build off that, and then we'll try to promote you more down the line, either end of the year or more next year, as we're trying to build up on this division because of all these older guys in this division who are eventually leaving within the next year or two. That I think this is that time, to continue to promote this guy because he may be a title contender down the line in 2 or 3 years. So to me, I do think that this is Dawson's fight to lose. I think this is going to be as much stand up as possible. I think Dawson's going to do everything he can to keep it standing. And even if it does go to the grappling, I don't see a situation where Selecki can find his way to a submission. And honestly, I probably will go Grant Dawson by decision.
All fair points. I gotta ask before we move on, as the dynasty owner of Grant Dawson, how are you feeling about the trajectory? And can we try not to just repeat what I just said next time?
Yeah, all right. First off, I said it 3 times that I basically copied you because you said all the points I have in my notes, which maybe I have a leak in my camp. So, if anything, I will say his trajectory is it's high right now, but I'm not a full believer that he is a title contender. I just think that with this division kind of folding over right now and changing hands, we're hearing news about Oliveira maybe fighting up. That Islam and Oliveira might be going into a camp together. The fact that Dustin Poirier, this could be his last fight, this Saturday. Gaethje, we saw him back in the gym, but how's he supposed to look? He might be done very soon. There's a lot of guys in the top 5 that might just be out of this division real soon. So, if Grant Dawson's sitting at 15 right now and with a win maybe goes to 14, those 3 guys jump ship. or retire or whatever, he might be in the top 10 within, a month or two, 2 or 3 months down the line without even fighting. So I do think he's got to avenge his last loss. And I think that will happen. I think the UFC is going to wait for that moment to kind of hype it up, maybe get another win or two under his belt before they give him that one. But I think, to me, he will fight for a title one day. At this moment in time, though, I just don't see him being better than Islam or Dustin if Dustin were to win at this current moment in time. But let's see how he does against a striker in his next fight, or give him a striker in the next two fights, and let me see how he does against someone like that before, obviously after, getting someone like Selecki.
I don't know, man. I think this is someone that could end up in the Hall of Very Good. But I agree. I don't think he ends up being a champion either. But I feel like this guy's gonna be around for a long time. Like I think
Yeah.
I think everyone's
Yes.
underestimating. Oh, we just saw him get knocked out, so it's kind of like, I think this guy's gonna be around for at least another 5 years, solid in this division, and we're gonna learn a lot. But with all that being said, we move on to another Sean-owned dynasty fighter. We've got Roman Kopylov, Chase Hooper's violent older brother, at plus 105, going up against Cesar Almeida, the Powhatan Slayer, minus 110, looking to avenge that win and find his way into a UFC title fight, similarly to how Alex Pereira did. Um, I can't wait to just shut the fuck up and unleash the reins on this one and just let you go. Cause god damn it, I'm excited about this fight and I have no idea how to feel. So I think the next 5 minutes are gonna dictate how I feel about this fight.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I have Roman on my team, and I'm honestly, I'm. This is what I tell you guys this all the time. Where there are 2 or 3 fights always in every card that I kind of just leave blank because I still don't know, and I'd be like, yeah, I'll decide in the moment. And then when I get to this moment, I'm like shitting bricks because I'm like, I have to make a decision, and I'm not ready to make that decision because I love what Roman has done. I think this is such an underrated bout. This might be one of my favorite fights on this entire card. Like, I think this is such a good fight. I think Kopylov is so fast when he's in the southpaw, and obviously it's his power side. I just think that with even with a straight left, or even when he goes to the to when he goes to the left and does some hooks, I just think that is something where that's so dangerous. But the other thing with Roman that really bothers me is the flip side of the coin is that he's so hittable at the same time, and he's been proven to be hittable. And with someone like Almeida, this is someone where he's very high level kickboxer. Obviously, we all know, he's another one with a brilliant left hook. He's going to be dangerous as well. So this could be like a 2.0 of what we saw with Pereira. But I, with the fact that I have Kopolov and the fact that it's very rare to see a 2.0 sort of situation here, I do not feel confident about this because my heart is telling me to pick Almeida. But I don't want to go against my dynasty pick. And I do see a situation where Kopolov does do just enough. And I'm being very vague here because I know you have so much you want to say. So I think with your breakdown, I'll understand it much better. But to me, I feel that Kopolov is very susceptible to getting hit, and that bothers me tremendously. But I think that Kopolov is also very quick enough that he can strike with Almeida. I think this is one where these guys are going to be tagging each other pretty well and pretty quickly throughout that first round. So while I think Almeida is the better striker, I do find a situation, even with Kopolov taking this to the ground and being that Sambo champion, I do see a situation where Sambo does just enough by unanimous decision in a split to win. But this is one where I could easily go with Almeida here by knockout in the first or second round. But I do think Kopolov does enough to just sneak away. And I honestly think this could be fight of the night or performance of the night for one of them.
Whew. Yeah, this fight this fight is crazy, man. I'm gonna be real. Cesar Almeida really impressed me in his last fight. I think I was genuinely high on Butker, and I was looking forward to seeing that fight because I thought grappling wise he would have a lot to offer, and he definitely did. And I think what Caesar showed was much more impressive. I mean, he is no Waldo Cortez Acosta, right? This guy is prepared for everything that MMA entails, and very much so in a way that leads to engagements on the feet versus longer entanglements in the grappling. Um, I think I say that to say, obviously, Roman Kopylov's not going to go out here and try to wrestle him, right? This is going to be a kickboxing fight, no matter how you slice it. Um, but I think the reason why that's important is it's not like we have the dynamic of the sort of fight IQ. Okay, I do the takedown and I win via MMA. I don't think that's a real route to victory against Cesar Almeida, especially in this matchup. But I won't be surprised if we see Roman Kopylov take him down. Like, I think it's important to mention that as well here. Um, what really scares me about this fight, honestly, is Cesar Almeida's attrition. And I think it's important to note that because I think technically Roman Kopylov is just a much more skilled fighter. And I think I'm leaning towards him because of that in this matchup. I just feel like Cesar Almeida, once again, sort of similarly to what I was saying about Phil Rowe, it's like when he's in these moments, he's almost fueled by the idea of you wilting. Like once you start to show that you're slowly letting go, right? Your hands are you're no longer able to white knuckle that grip, and you're starting to cardiovascularly fall behind. That's when he really puts the foot on the gas, and I think he could really snowball here if he hurts Roman Kopylov, which makes it a dangerous fight. Um, I just trust Roman Kopylov to be a better sniper on the outside. I think physicality in this matchup shouldn't be an issue because Roman Kopylov has fought a little bit more physical fighters, and obviously Cesar Almeida isn't going out there trying to trying to wrestle him, right? I think if he did, honestly, and if he had those skills, I think it might serve him well in this fight because then it really changes the way Roman Kopylov approaches things. Um, and I would love to see that out. If we see a takedown attempt here by, I'm all in. I'm all in on the Cesar Almeida train, just because not because oh yeah you're gonna be a wrestler now, but you understand that if you got the weapon, you might as well use it. If you have the option, you might as well build it into your game because even if in your heart of hearts you're not gonna do that, um, making them think about anything else but your striking can really give you an advantage when so many people are just worried about what you're trying to do on the feet. Roman Kopylov should win this fight. I'm picking him to win the fight. But Cesar Almeida is here to stay, man. And I think even if he does lose here, he's gonna be around for a while, middleweight. But all right, next up, we have another welterweight matchup, just stacked with welterweight matchups all night, baby. We've got Randy Rude Boy Brown minus 170 going up against Eliseu Zaleski dos Santos. I will accept nothing shorter than that in abbreviation when you say his name, Sean. So I can't wait for that. You know I love me some Rude Boy, right? Like this is I'm biased here, brother. I am biased here. It's been a while since we've seen Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos in competition, so I think that's important to note as well. Um, what struggles me and makes me sad about this fight is it is so clear to me who I want to win. It is so clear to me who I think should win. Um, but I fear that it's very scary to trust Randy Brown to follow a game plan for 15 minutes. It is not an exciting thing to keep track of during a fight because it's going so well, and then it just starts going so bad. And when it goes bad, God damn it, Randy Brown is hurt. Like it's not like, oh shit, he's losing this round. It's like, oh, it's over. Like it goes bad very, very quickly. And I think in a matchup like this, that can definitely happen. Um, I think Randy Brown on the outside is a fucking problem in this matchup specifically. I think he could really touch Eliseo from the outside, and really make him fear closing that distance, and that's what he has to do. Like, I think if this one becomes a prolonged bout of your turn, my turn exchanges, I think Elizeu is going to be able to hurt him on the feet and really bring it to him. But I think Randy Brown has the skills to keep him on the outside, land disciplined shots, and maybe even build towards a finish. I think Randy Brown, this is once again high stakes here. I think if Randy Brown loses this, regardless of how good Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos is, it'll really change the way we look at him, despite him being the more experienced fighter at this stage, which is kind of crazy to think about because if I'm not mistaken, EZD started before Randy Brown in the UFC, but he's just been competing at a much more regular rate. Um, I love this fight, man, and I'm a fan. I think this is going to be a fight very similar to what you said about the last one. I'm picking Randy Brown, and it feels like it's because I'm biased. God damn it, Sean, go ahead, let the people know.
Well, this one I think is more. Um, well, I agree with you. I'm picking Randy to win here, but this is one where I think this is kind of a little bit on a basic side for me because I think Zaleski is definitely getting up there in age, and I think for me, Zaleski's biggest advantage in this fight is to just get really gritty here and get really up close and personal. I think that's his way to win. To kind of just overwhelming, not even overpowering, just overwhelming Brown. And like you said, I don't see Brown listening for 15 minutes. And the thing with Brown is he's got a significant reach advantage here. I think his ability to glide toward the outside almost every single fight is always very dangerous for the opposition, and he can let his hands go a lot more comfortably. And I think that's Randy Brown's plan to victory here. But I do think if Zaleski can find a way to get up close and personal, then this would be Zaleski. I would pick Zaleski here, but I do find a situation where Brown's whole camp has been trying to keep this distance, keep this on the outside, and just kind of fire away. And I think if he fires away, like we've seen from him in the past, I think this is his fight. And I don't see a situation, even in the cardio, when we get to that second and third round, I do want to know how Zaleski holds up in there after, I do think they're going to be throwing heavy in the first, 7, 8 minutes. And I could see it a knockout. I doubt it severely. I have Brown winning by decision, but I want to see how Zaleski holds up going into that third round. I want to see how he's looking. I want to see how high the hands are, and that is another disadvantage I have toward him. And I do think that Brown's kind of going to have him fight his fight, keep his toward the outside, have him chasing him, and that's where I see Brown kind of hitting him more than Zaleski hits him. I know that sounds super basic, but I find that this one's more of just where the footing is in the cage, and I think Brown is going to be so much more on the outside, much more keeping Zaleski away and chasing, and I think Brown wins by decision, unanimous decision.
You love to see it. Next up, we're moving on to the heavyweight division. We have two people that I'm excited to talk about because they're a lot more akin to each other than most people seem to understand, especially when you look at them, right? When you look at them showing up for the fights, god damn it. But once again, Jelton Almeida minus 250 going up against Alexander Romanov plus 240. Sean, it is your turn, and I can't wait to hear how you feel because, god damn it, I'm very convicted on this fight.
Are you okay? Well, I'm almost 95% positive I have Almeida on my team. I think we did a trade. Now I have Almeida. Um, I'm picking Almeida here because while his last fight was disappointing, we did talk about how that could have happened, and I do think that if this was Romanov before the like significant change in weight and look, I might have actually picked Romanov in this fight. But even though he won his last fight, I still don't have the confidence that I once did in Romanov here. And I think Almeida's still on his way. I say this to you all the time, where these prospects come up, and I think the UFC loves to just rush them into a big moment. into a big number one contender fight. And I always say I think they need one or two more fights. Like I get it, it's boring. And, it's not what the fans want. It's not what the UFC wants. They just want to hype this train up and just push them, beyond what they're ready for. And I think that's kind of what happened in Almeida's last fight. And while even though Almeida has honestly, I probably would pick Almeida's striking to be better than Romanov's here. And I know this is all Almeida is much more of a grappler and whatever. But I do see a situation where this isn't even really a close fight. I think Almeida is just going to kind of find his way back and avenge the loss. I do think this is a fight I could have seen before his last fight. Is continue to just get experience before fighting for that number one contender fight. And I wish that this fight happened before because the more experience, the better. Fighting someone like Romanov, who was just like him not too long ago on this hype train of building up this prospect of becoming someone great. And then I forgot what venue that they were at. It was also in Vegas, but I forgot what venue that they were at when he came out. I think everyone that watches the UFC was like, "Who the fuck is that guy?" That is not Romanov because I don't know. They were hyping up the fact that he changed camps. He's looking to do things differently here, and then he came out, and you're like, that dude ain't Romanov. That is not him. I don't know who that guy is, but the fact that he won his last fight is sort of a positive trajectory for me. But I don't see him getting through Almeida here. I think Almeida is much more. It's going to be way too much here, and I think this gets Almeida back into the top five, and hopefully we can see him in a title fight within the next 2 years or a year because how the UFC works. And this is Almeida all day.
Almeida all day. See, that's what kind of freaks me out about this one. I know I said I'm very convicted in this one. I am. I think what makes me sad is I think Alexander Romanov is such a fascinating fighter to examine from an outside perspective because I have been huge on his prospects in this division because of the way he fights, man. He is a grappler through and through, and he is someone that is very unique and unorthodox, very much so like why did I just blank as soon as I said it? God damn it. What is this guy's name? Alexei Olenek at heavyweight, where it's a completely different style of grappling than what you're used to seeing, period. But especially at this weight class, very much so interested in sort of a Greco-Roman approach that leads into a lot of judo style tosses. Um, a lot of upper body wrestling versus shot takedown. So these guys get their bones in very different ways, right? Like their takedowns, both of these guys are trying to get takedowns, right? But Jailton Almeida is a shot takedown artist. He has such a fast, nimble double leg specifically, but also works his singles in that same kind of manner where he's getting on that leg swiftly and then he's working towards his takedown. Alexander Romanov is quite the opposite. Honestly, a lot of his takedown attempts that start at the legs don't end up working. It's a lot of mixing things up in the clinch and finding a way to manipulate this guy's weight until I'm on top. And I think it's going to be a fascinating fight to watch because of that. I think both of these guys are going to be trying to accomplish very different things despite trying to be grapplers. Um, I think what makes me very convicted in this fight is I think Jailton Almeida does have the much more fluid striking and the much more intentional striking. I think he's someone that very much so you can see has his bearings as far as what he wants to do out there. If I'm not mistaken, his father was an Olympic hopeful in boxing, so there's a trail there. I don't think he has necessarily the strongest shot boxing. I think what he's really good at is mixing in his kicks and making people think that one thing is coming, and then he'll mix in a couple stronger overhand shots that could definitely hurt a lot of opponents. I think Alexander Romanov has just been so up and down, inconsistent in his career as far as the kind of shape he's in for these fights. I know he has been going through a lot. If I'm not mistaken, had lost his father, and that played a part into this entire saga where everyone was sort of making fun of him for showing up to his fights and looking out of shape. If I'm not mistaken, It doesn't look like he's in that killer shape that we saw him in that one time for this fight either. So that's something that a lot of people should consider here. I think ultimately what scares me though is I think the same way Curtis Blades banked him, I could see Alexander Romanov banking him with just a small hammer fist shot that we're like, how the fuck did that knock you out? And what scares me about it specifically is because that's how Romanov finishes people. Like literally, he has a very unique ability to hurt people with those short shots. And stylistically, that's a tough matchup, especially when you consider Jelton Almeida is going to be going for those legs. So I swear to God, this is not because I traded him. I swear to God, this is not because I don't believe in Jelton Almeida. He should win here. But God damn it, I'm picking Alexander Romanov.
I actually wanted to ask you a question. Um, why do you think, and this is more of a UFC question, I just heard earlier today actually that they decided to make this the featured prelim and move the what's the fight? The Nico Price Alex Morono fight, I think, to the main card, if I'm not mistaken. Why do you think they did that?
That's interesting. That is really interesting. Yeah, because when you look at the fights on the card, you would assume this would be higher up. That's a good. I don't know. I don't know why the fuck they're doing that. Honestly, the fight they moved up feels more like a feature prelim kind of fight. I don't know. We want
I
action, and I don't think this is necessarily going to deliver action. I think whoever wins here is going to be going to come off as a star because it's heavyweight, and you're probably going to get a
Yeah,
finish.
I think
I don't
that's
know.
why.
Weird move for me. Weird move.
I think that's why because it's a heavyweight. There's no way this is lasting 15 minutes, probably in their eyes, and I think either of these guys are up and coming, or could be still regarded as up and coming prospects in a way. Um, from what Romanov was to the two losses to getting it, back in the win column, winning and grappling, and then Almeida obviously, being as high level as he was, just coming off of a loss. But I think whoever wins, then they can hype the shit out of that win, and then I think it also has to do with the fact that once it goes towards that pay per view, you get like a good 15 minutes, and then you got the people like Chael Sonnen and all the people up top in the booth at ESPN will talk about that featured prelim, and I think that's what they're trying to do instead of having them talk about whatever Grant Dawson and Joe Selecki. It could be more let's talk about Almeida or Romanov, whoever wins, and having Nico Price and Alex Morono is a pretty wild surprised to have in a main card if you could just move Grant Dawson up. But that's why I wanted to ask you because I thought maybe you would know more because seeing Alex Morono and Nico Price in a main card still in 2024 is shocking to say the least. And but you know what? It's good for the people who won't be buying pay per view and they'll get to see Almeida and Romanoff in action.
Yeah, that's a great shout. I honestly, bro, I think the first fight of the night would be a better pay-per-view fight than that fight's going to be. No disrespect to those guys. I'm excited to see both of those fights. But we will see. Holy shit. This is very very strange times to say the least. But we move on. Next up, we are in the middleweight division. We've got Kevin Holland. It's taken this long for us to get a Chris Dynasty fighter. God damn it, Kevin Holland going up against another one of my boys, someone that I hold very dear to my heart, Michal Oleksiejczuk, someone that I still feel is fighting way above his natural weight class at middleweight, despite coming down a division. I don't think I'm supposed to go. Am I supposed to go first on this one? I'm going first on this one, motherfucker. You don't have a choice. I really like both of these guys, and I'm always gonna vouch for Oleg Zaishuk, even when most people will not. Um, I think it's gonna be a fucking banger. I think it's gonna be an awesome fight, no matter how you slice it. I think both of these guys are gonna have an answer for each other. I'm picking this fight to go to decision. I think both of these guys are gonna be in it for the long haul, and it's gonna be a lot of exchanges here. I think even if Mihal ends up hurting Kevin Holland, just given the way he fights, I could picture him rolling out of there and finding a way to get back at range and making things slow down a little bit. I'm a fan of both these guys and their prospects, but unfortunately for me, Hal, I just feel like where he's at in his career, everyone sort of has a great idea of what he wants to do out there. Um, and at this stage of his career, I just feel like Kevin Holland still has a little bit more tricks to pull out the bag, so to speak. I think I really like Kevin Holland's rangy striking in this matchup, being the much larger man. I think he could definitely touch Mihal with some 1-2s and be sharp and keep him at range. And I think that'll really help him to prevent damage, especially in close, because we've seen him definitely get not shot, get intercepted in a lot of different matchups. It's particularly, I'm thinking about the Stephen Thompson fight, where in those exchanges, he gets met with a shot that really changes the way those exchanges are going. And I think Mihal has that kind of power. So the more you could be at range, the better. And I just feel like he's a lot more disciplined at fighting that way than people would think, given he has the reputation for being a shit talker. I just hope he doesn't get frustrated and then find himself in a position where he's not really taking full advantage of his offense and just sort of sitting back and waiting. He could get caught in those ruts sometimes. And I think against someone like Mihal, if you let him start snowballing and advancing forward towards you, it could really fatigue you having to constantly back up with the way that Mihal pressures. So I don't like anything other than Kevin Holland at range here and sort of being at range, but being offensive. Like there's a very big difference than fighting rangy and being defensive than fighting offensively rangy. And I think if he could stay active, this is his fight to lose for sure, to use some of Sean's verbiage. But how do you feel about this middleweight matchup? And am I being a dynasty homer? Am I not giving Mihal a good enough shot?
No, I think you're giving him. I actually think you're giving him a better shot because I think this is like I'm trying to think in the mind of Kevin Holland, which is almost impossible. But for him to come back in under 3 months, it just shows, and the fact that he's going back to middleweight, which I don't think he's fought at in like 3 years. He had like a decent run at welterweight. He won a bunch and then he lost a bunch. That whole Hamzat thing was a disaster. But I think I think he loves fighting at this weight. But I also think he knows that like he can make that 170 weight. So I think this is I am extremely interested at seeing what he could do at 185 because I think at 185 he's a little small, and 170 he kind of fits right in, but he's a little he's to me he's just very skinny to me. Like obviously I know that sounds really dumb to say, but I'm just like I could see a situation where just like fighting someone like Wonder Boy and an MVP, those are two very high level offensive guys. That's a tough back to back to take, and for Holland to come back to 185 where he feels most comfortable, I think his cardio was always like a big thing when it came to the 5 round fights. How he would look in round 4 and 5, how he looked against MVP even in round 3. He looked a little gassed out. I don't know if that's going to be much of a factor in this one. I do think Holland, like you said before, just the distance and the wider range. I think Holland just going to find his way back to the win column here. I think he pieces him up. I think this is a fight that Holland specifically wanted. He wanted to, especially when he loses, he immediately wants to get back in the octagon to avenge that. He doesn't want the last fight to be a loss, and he'll do whatever it takes to get right back in the cage. And I think this is one where we looked at Holland his whole career being, sort of a clown where he'd come in on short notice, he'd kind of dance it off, laugh it off, talk to the guys while he's getting elbowed in the head. He was one of the most interesting characters to have a hot mic on. But I think he, over the last 2 or 3 years, has learned to, all right, well, you know what? I'm actually pretty good at this shit. Let me start taking this a little bit more seriously, and I can maybe become something here. And I think he's unfortunate to be one of those guys in mixed martial arts that kind of struggles to find a weight class that fits best for him. Like I think he could easily make 185, and I think he doesn't like going to 170. But I think he's more powerful at 185. But I also think once he faces guys like Marvin Vettori and that higher caliber of middleweights, then I think he's severely at a disadvantage. And so I think when he fights guys at welterweight. I think they're a little bit faster for him, and I think that's where he struggles against someone like Wonder Boy and MVP, two guys who are very similar. Two guys I wish would fight each other, but I think that will happen eventually. I know people say that they don't because they kind of counteract each other and it doesn't really work, but I do think that that would be a fight the UFC makes within like a year from now. But I do see Kevin Holland winning this fight. I don't. I even if Mihal will try to grapple and keep this or try to force this to the ground, I don't really see it. I think, and I do think that Holland has gotten so much better in the grappling over the last 3 or 4 fights that I actually have confidence in him. And while the weight could be a disadvantage for him with if Mihal tries to take this towards grappling in the wrestling, I do think Holland is just such a longer range, wider range guy that he can use his kicks, can stay towards the outside like he's been, keep that 1-2 combination that he's been using for that long striking that he's been using for the last time he was a middleweight. And I honestly, I like Holland here as much as it's so hard to pick him or pick against him. I'm going Holland third round KO.
Next up, we're keeping it in the middleweight division. We have Sean Strickland, our former champion, minus 240, going up against the secret juice, Paulo Costa, plus 210. Um, I can't wait to hear how you feel about this fight because I think this fight is a little straightforward. And I know that you are the resident Costa hater here on the show, which I love to hear always. You know, he's never going to make it to none of these fights. I got some things to say about that in this fight. So I'll throw to my guy early and often, even if it doesn't feel right. But Sean, how do you feel about your brother in name, despite the fact that I own him in Dynasty?
I'm mad about that because I have Strickland to win this one. Honestly, I think this is one where it's going to be that the fact that this is 5 rounder. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but this is a 5 round fight, and I think that is. I think the UFC did that on purpose because these guys are number one contenders here. Even though for me, I don't see how for Costa. The dude had his chance, and then ever since that, the dude is the king of finding staff. And I don't know if you've seen his foot. His foot looks like he has staff now. This is what I'm talking about. Like I don't hate Costa. The fucking thing that bothers me is that this dude, every time he gets his fucking name called to get in here, it always comes to the week before, 2 weeks before. All of a sudden, the media starts hyping it up, and then some crazy shit where his elbow, you can see the fucking bone in his elbow from the staff, and he's like, "Oh, I was trying to fight, dude. You didn't even have an elbow. What were you talking about?" Like, and now looking at the media pics, it looks like there's a fucking like crater in his fucking foot. Who the hell knows how they're gonna let that go? But it's just clean the mats, bro. Let me clean it. I'll clean it, bro. I'll spend 24 straight hours cleaning that mat because hey, that's almost sounds like a pause, but I mean that like as straightforward as possible. But I think with this one, cardio will come into play around round 4, round 3. I think Strickland has the defense to handle Custa. I think Custa is very straightforward here. I think he's just very heavy punches, coming straight at you, big action, big movements, massive power. Just kind of looks really good in the judges' eyes when that first round. We saw that fight against Whitaker. I think it was a spinning heel kick if I remember correctly, where it got Whitaker, and like it was like for a second we were really like, holy shit, Whitaker might lose again. And Whitaker came out to prevail because then you start to see Custa really slow down. The arms go. He kind of laughs as he's getting bloodied up, and that's like the Custa fucking like defense mechanism. When he starts smiling, he's getting fucked up, and he knows it too. And he's like, "I'm such a meathead that I can't even lift my arms, but ha ha ha, like punch me again." Like he can't really do much about it. So I think with Strickland's like excellent defense and his really fast jab, I think that's just going to constantly be pressure. And I think after the third round, or really after the first round or second round of just constant, massive, heavy throws from Costa, you're going to start to see the mouth open, the smiling, and sort of him moving slowly towards Strickland. Well, I think Strickland's just going to constantly just be doing this right around him and just like making it a swirl to the point where Costa's just kind of always backing up and trying to find his way back forward. I do think this is one of the slower fights, to be honest with you. I don't see the crowd going crazy with this one. I think Strickland's just going to be very straightforward here. And I think, as much as he likes to say, back then that the belt didn't mean much to him, and all that fight with Duplessis was kind of bullshit. I think he really wants it. I think he really does want that belt back. I think he's sort of changing into a different person. The fact that he's in his personal life got a dog, he's got his girlfriend, he's got himself a nice little house now with a pool. Like, he's starting to become starting to make some money, starting to realize like that there's more to just talking shit and just getting a basic paycheck from the UFC. And he's even talked about at his media day that all he ever cared about was just having the UFC in his bio, and now he really cares about winning. And I think this is one where he knows that Cuss is a very straightforward type of guy. He's going to be chaotic and try to disrupt Strickland's pattern in that first round, maybe even in the second round if he's got the gas tank. But there's a reason that they made this 5 rounds, and I think this is one where it's time. I think we've given Costa enough excuses and enough injury excuses over these years, with the cardio, with the injuries, with the staff, with the nonsense. Let's see him now. Legit, secret juice or not, this is the fucking time. We wanted to see the Hamzat thing. We wanted to see you against Whitaker. We wanted to see the secret juice come out and pause. That was major pause right there. And to see how he really does. Now he's got 5 rounds against a guy no one believed in, that shouldn't have won, shouldn't be a champion, shouldn't have gotten a title shot. This is it. You're going complete opposite. You got a defensive guy who's very excellent, jab heavy, kind of forcing pressure, and you're the opposite. You're the I'm going to throw haymakers. If you even feel the same air, you're going to sleep. Like, he's got that crazy middleweight power, probably one of the heaviest middleweight powers in this division, and I think that this is Strickland. I think this is Strickland. I think Strickland takes it, but if for some crazy reason we see the exact same first round that Costa put on Whitaker, I don't see a situation where Costa lets Strickland breathe and get back up, and I think Costa could win via first round TKO, but based off of the MMA logic that I've seen from both these fighters in their careers, I do see Strickland knows escape the first 5, start put pressure in the next 5, and then it's your fight for the next 15. And then I think that's where, to be honest with you, I see this one being 49-46 Strickland, if it even happens, because who the fuck knows with Costa, if he's even going to make fucking weight, if he's going to not have staff for some, who the fuck knows where else, if he's even going to make the walk. Who the hell knows with this guy? So, if it does happen, give me Strickland.
Yeah, man. I think there's a world where a couple years from now we look back and we're like, damn, like what could have been with Paulo Costa? Because once again, I don't assume any of these things are in his fault. I would imagine this is so fucking frustrating to deal with as an athlete. I mean, I'm sure he's fought hurt more than anybody, literally more than anybody. This dude is perpetually injured, and it sucks to see. But I think it's important to note it because all the things you said. I was gonna bring up the foot because yeah, it looked really bad. And I won't be surprised if he gets pulled, but at the same time, I won't be surprised if he doesn't, right? Because these people don't give a fuck. They're like, oh, you can stand, you can breathe. All right, let's fucking go. Right, Mike Tyson? Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. But um this fight is interesting. I think the longer it goes, the more it favors Paulo Costa. And I think that's crazy to most people. But really had a fun time looking back at Sean Strickland's fight with Drickus, and I think he really lost that fight after round 2. Like, things just started going downhill. And I think Paulo Costa, despite being basic in his approach, I think he's someone that, regardless of how big he looks muscle wise, has shown really high output as fights go along and is always there in those exchanges. So I think it's going to be up to Sean Strickland to really build a comfortable lead and then continue to um, play those advantages. I think Sean Strickland should clearly be the favorite in this one. I think Sean Strickland probably is going to win by decision. I'm picking him to win. Um, but I think it honestly favors Paulo Costa this being a 5-round fight, especially all things considered. Sean Strickland really wants to go out there and right this wrong, right? He feels like he got robbed. He doesn't think Dricus deserved to win that fight. But the harder I look, honestly, I thought Sean Strickland won that fight clean and clear the first time I watched it, and then on the replay for the replay show. But now I'm watching it and I'm like, man, I don't know if there's a case for Sean Strickland to win this fight, which is kind of crazy. Speaks to how close that fight is. So I think it's really going to be up to Costa to make moments where Sean Strickland's starting to fight from a place of emotion. I think we've seen him feed off of that in previous fights, but I think in this matchup specifically, if Paulo can land, I think he's the much more devastating striker of the two. And he needs to capitalize on that momentum because I feel like it's a matter of if, not a matter of excuse me, it's a matter of when Sean Strickland gets hurt versus a matter of if. I think at some point Paulo Costa is going to catch him with something, like he did. I mean, if he can do that against Robert Whitaker, then there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be able to land something like that against Sean Strickland. It's just a matter of being able to capitalize on that, and then all things considered with the injury. Not good vibes, man. I'm picking Sean Strickland here, but I think ultimately a lot of people are going to be surprised. Not might be, are going to be surprised how close this fight ends up being, and I think Paulo deserves to be in this top five no matter what. Even if he loses this, who the fuck in the top five at middleweight are we confident in to beat Paulo Costa if Robert Whitaker had a moment there that he got finished? Like I don't think there is anyone in this division really that has completely set themselves apart from everyone else. I think everyone is right there skills wise. But I think Paulo Costa deserves a lot more credit than he gets because of his misfortunes via injury. But do you have anything to say about that co-main before we move back on to the main event?
Well, I wanted to ask you a question. With this fight, with Strickland versus Costa, and then obviously we know it's going to be Hamzat versus Whitaker in a couple weeks. Who, if you had to choose for to fight for the title next, whoever wins this fight versus whoever wins that fight, would you go leaning more towards Sean Strickland's favor or Paulo Costa's favor? Or would you lean more, all right, it's time for Hamzat to get that shot, or even, all right, Whitaker one more time? Who would you prefer or, think that is going to happen for?
It's a great question. I think just because of the way this all shook out, I think Sean Strickland's going to have to fight again if he wants to fight for the title, which sucks, man, because in my opinion, I think he has an argument for deserving a rematch. I think it was once again very close fight, and the rounds that he won were very dominant. And I think this fight could look like that too. To be honest, I think the rounds he win in this one are going to look very one-sided, but the ones that are close and where Paulo gets some momentum is really where the difference is made. So unfortunately, I just feel like all the momentum is with whoever wins that other fight, especially because of the big splash that is Hamzat actually fighting great competition on accurate notice, right? We don't have the short notice thing with Kamaru, so it's time to really see his first big step up. And we've always been sort of eyes wide open, waiting for this moment for what feels like an eternity now, which is crazy. But yeah, I think that fight probably ends up with a title shot before this one. But I think Sean Strickland's deserving, and I won't be surprised if he wins this and doesn't fight again, and then gets the next shot, like the next shot. But I think no matter what, the next one's going to whoever wins that fight in Abu Dhabi, right?
Okay.
Is that in Abu Dhabi or is that in Saudi Arabia? That's in Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah, Saudi Arabia, yeah.
Is that
I understand what you're
racist?
trying to
Is
say.
that racist?
No,
Is that a
I don't think
racist?
so.
Okay, okay. I just had to check.
We're not close to that area, so we get it confused sometimes. All right.
I don't know if that
Was
helped
that
matters.
worse?
No, yeah, it might have made it worse. We're moving on, baby. Brick City. We've got a main event. Islam
Uh-huh.
Makhachev minus 600 going up against the Diamond El Diamante Dustin Poirier. I'm gonna chronicle this, man, because I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna try to be brief here, but I'm gonna chronicle this shit because I'm hype about it, okay? And you're not gonna stop me, Sean. You're not. So Dustin Poirier is an absolute legend of this game. Please for those of you who have only been around for the last 4 or 5 years, I encourage you all to just look at this man's resume and look at the quality of experience and opponents this man has fought. There's very few people who hold a candle to Dustin Poirier's resume in the UFC and what he's been able to accomplish. I do not care that he has not been able to be undisputed champ. This guy has a Hall of Fame worthy career in the UFC and deserves to be respected as such. God damn it! And the fact that he's getting this third shot, timing wise, obviously it was amazing to see him get that win against BSD, my dynasty guy nowadays after that big trade. But what a huge knockout and one that I predicted. So you can't say nothing about nothing. You know what I'm saying? I saw it. I said it, and then it happened. You know what I'm saying? So I've kind of been ahead of the curve when it comes to these sort of upset victories with people like Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway this year. So interested on how that plays out in this angle. I think ultimately what makes this fight so special is that Dustin Poirier gets a third chance to become undisputed, and what that means for his legacy, in my opinion, is so significant because he already has such a solid legacy, in my opinion. I think no matter what, he's someone that should be looked up to and admired as a fighter from what he's been able to accomplish and the way this guy goes out there and fights. Like, holy shit. Uh, love me a Dustin Poirier fight, and he continues to get better at this ripe old age of 37. Um, the problem is this guy is going up against someone that is in the short list of discussion for who could be this generation's GOAT, right? Who can be this next generation's holy shit, this is the best guy we've ever seen. I think Islam Makhachev has shown all the bearings of being that guy. And I think what's crazy about this fight is I think the pressure, believe it or not, is all on Islam Makhachev. I think everyone expects Islam Makhachev to go out there and steamroll Dustin Poirier. I think if this fight is competitive in any way, similar to the first Alexander Volkanovski fight, I think a lot of people are going to be talking down on Islam and underrating him after that performance, despite what a tough opponent Dustin Poirier is. I mean, it speaks to the greatness that Islam Makhachev possesses when a fight like this against a southpaw. Remember, he's only been knocked out by a southpaw and Adriano Martins. It's expected that he's going to win this fight, but he's going to win this fight easily, right? Everyone expects him to be able to go out there and submit Dustin Poirier. What happens if he doesn't submit Dustin? Like, does that I just assume no matter what, if let's say he wins and it's by decision, that people are gonna be like, you see, Islam's a fraud. Like, that's the level of pressure that this man faces every time he fights. But god damn it, these fucking Dagestanis, they chew on lumps of pressure like they're packs of zins, right? They just for this is amusement, baby. And I think there aren't many prospects that are like Islam as far as being someone that has dominant grappling, that has dominant submissions, that has the matador ability to make people run onto strikes, but also can pressure you and head kick all-time great opponents in their own right into oblivion as well. This guy continues to improve as well, and I think any love towards Dustin is 100% warranted, and I think a lot of people are going to be throwing some money on Dustin because obviously such a huge underdog in this spot. But I couldn't have been more confident in someone on my dynasty team than I am in Islam Makhachev in this matchup. I think regardless of how happy it would make me to see Poirier become champion, um, you really got to sell me a bridge in order to get me to see a way that Dustin Poirier wins this fight. Obviously, everyone's pointing to the Martins fight and what he was able to accomplish there. Um, I just don't think he's going to be looking for shot takedowns in this matchup at all. I think Islam Makhachev's team doesn't get the credit they deserve for how smart they are in game planning around people. And if you see this man is willing to go for the gilly whenever he gets a fucking chance, even if I'm confident that nobody's going to catch me in the guillotine, if I can avoid that path, then it puts me in a good spot because we saw with BSD, regardless of him being staff riddled, constantly fighting that position and trying to go for the takedowns and then having to get out of that wore on him. And I think that can wear on Islam, regardless of if it's ineffective or not. I think this fight hinges on Dustin Poirier's ability to scramble without being irresponsible. I think if he can get to his feet and really be tough for Islam Makhachev in those exchanges, I think he really has a great shot at keeping this fight close and then eventually starting to wear on Islam Makhachev with his striking. But I think if he's the guy we've seen, with all due respect, that's just waiting, right, waiting on a moment to just pounce and get up, we're going to see very similar situations where Islam's backpacking him and finding his way to a submission. Um, I think ultimately the way that I see this fight playing out is Islam being very, very patient and deliberate earlier on in this fight, and then working his way onto having Dustin against the fence, and then from there clinching his way to a takedown versus shot takedowns here. Um, I'm a big fan of Islam's growth on the feet. I think it'll be silly of him to try to lead with his striking in a very aggressive way. He had the feel already on Alexander Volkanovski in that matchup. I don't think he has the feel on this matchup, regardless of his partner in Habib um, having had this fight. He's never had this fight personally, and I think being susceptible against orthodox fighters, I think it's gonna pay off to be a lot more conservative with the striking in this fight, despite how he has improved in those phases. So I'm going with Islam Makhachev here. I think it's the consensus that he's going to win this fight. But this is a lot closer of a matchup than people are giving it credit for. On top of this being a very unique stylistic challenge for Islam, despite the moments in Poirier's career you could point to and say, "Hey, I could see Islam doing that." I think there's a lot of that in the reverse for Poirier. So it's going to be on Poirier to really be able to compete enough in the phases where he is deficient in order to sort of bridge the gap and give himself a chance to try to land something in the striking. Uh, we're asking a lot of Dustin Poirier here, man. And unfortunately, I just can't pick on him to do something that we've been asking him to do in title fights for years, man. But it hurts. But I'm very confident in Islam here.
Yeah, this is. We talked. I remember the last time we even mentioned this conversation. You ended up hanging up on me when it came out to me saying that I felt that Dustin obviously didn't deserve this title shot, and he doesn't. And I'll die in that hill because he doesn't. It was just timing. The fact that Gaethje blew it in UFC 300. Charles is injuries, and then also just losing to Arman, and Arman still needs. I think Arman could have been next, but I think because Arman had just fought, he
Yeah, it
wasn't
would have been
ready.
Arman. It would have been
Yeah,
Arman.
that's what I'm saying. The timing just didn't work out, and I think someone like Dustin, who just beat BSD, who he didn't even want to fight at first. He didn't want to fight backwards. Took the only fight he could have possibly taken. Incredible, incredible. I wouldn't call it a comeback, but it was just incredible fight. Yeah, at first it looked like BSD kind of had him on the ropes at first, and then the way Dustin came out that second round and was just so dominant and putting BSD away. Also, like I said before, earlier in the show, and I've said a zillion fucking times, is that they rush these prospects against these guys who they need two more fights before they even get to a top three guy like Dustin Poirier. So, like as much as I was happy to see Dustin win, I don't see that happening here. Like the thing is, the one thing that everyone's going to talk about with Islam is the fact that his two title defenses are against a guy who was not part of this weight class. He did beat Charles to get the belt, but before that it was Bobby Green and Dan Hooker. It's beating Charles was a humongous step and an incredible fight, and how easy he made that. And then for Dustin, Dustin coming off the head kick loss to Gaethje, which I don't think a single fan thought that was going to happen with the head kick. But coming back to also, he's lost to Khabib. He's lost in every title shot he's ever been given. I just don't see a situation where Dustin can win this one. But at the same time, I think this one is closer than it was for Khabib versus him because, like, I think everyone looked at Khabib as being just immortal figure, but and I think Islam could potentially be better than Khabib. I think Islam has holes in his game, and I think even in the Volk fight, the first one, obviously, Volk being at the top of the mountain when it came for the pound for pound, he kind of showed that Islam isn't this, isn't Khabib Jr. Like he can be beaten. And I think Dustin's going to look at that and try to exploit it, keep this on the stand up, stay away from the fucking cage as much as possible. But I just don't see a situation where after a while, you, fighting Islam for 25 minutes, you're going to eventually get caught. And that's the problem that I see here is that while Dustin can maybe find a way out of the wrestling and the grappling maybe once, I just don't see a way how he could keep this up for 25 minutes. And to be completely honest, I I could see a situation where Dustin lands even one or two clean ones on Islam, but I think by round 2 or 3, it's going to be like when you fought Charles. Like it's just eventually you're going to get put to the cage, you're going to get taken. And for Charles, obviously he took the back and eventually finished him. But I think with like you said with Islam, you force to the cage, and then it'll be. I agree with you 100%. Then the takedown will happen, and then you'll be smothered. And then by then, I do see some crazy like rear naked choke situation happening or something of that caliber. The fact that Islam feels so confident, and the fact that he's already talking about, oh, I have something special cooked up for him. Oh, he has no idea what I've been training for. I think this is Islam's time. I think also this division's a little bit on the lower end, of contending fighters right now. I think there are guys coming up that I love how you're disagreeing. I think there are contenders coming up that could give him problems, but I don't think someone like Gaethje is someone that could beat him. I don't even think if Charles could beat him now. Dustin is, all these top 3, top 5 guys. I don't see beating Islam right now. Arman is probably the closest shot, but still, even then, I would give Islam the advantage. Like, there's no one that I see at this current moment in time that I find as a legitimate, serious threat besides Arman as beating Islam. And I think that's why I feel these prospects coming up will be great eventually, but there's still a little bit of a time gap between them being great and being at Islam's level. So I think this is Islam's time right now. And I think for the next year or two, it could be. If I had to pick him versus Arman, I'm picking Islam. So right now, I think this is Islam's time. I think, honestly, this could be the last time we see Dustin in the UFC, which will be a little bit depressing. Like, I'll be a little bit depressed seeing that because it just shows like how old I'm getting. The fact that I felt like I've been watching this dude since almost the beginning, and now we're all the way here, and now we're talking about him being an old head. But yeah, it'll be sad. But I'm going Islam here, and I wanted to ask you one final thing with this whole Islam situation. Obviously, beating Volkanovski twice. The everyone's going to have an excuse for him. So I'm going to lay out the hater excuse right off the rip. Beat featherweight in the first one, and it was close. So did he really beat him? Blah blah blah. The second one, short notice on whatever 6 days notice, whatever it was back then, and now he's fighting Dustin, who didn't deserve the shot, but just worked out timeline wise. Do you look at his run as like solidified? Because I know people are going to automatically be like, "Yeah, it's not solidified." Is it solidified? Is just 3 or potentially 3 title defenses if he beats Dustin, or do you think you still need to see, him fight a real number 1 contender in Arman, or if Charles again, if he decides to, fight him again, or whatever his situation might be, if he avenges Arman's loss? Like, what do you see in Islam's championship tenure right now?
Great questions, man. I think there are what I love about the position where lightweight's in right now is that regardless of if you may think they are going to beat him or have a chance to beat him, it's very different like styles that you're going to be fighting in each of these fights, which in my opinion makes a dominant champion's reign even more exciting because then we're getting to see their style compete against these very different styles, right? And I think that's what we love about MMA. I think ultimately what makes this so strange for me is his the way he fights. Like he's very much so on a 1 to twice a year schedule, and he's very much so fighting this time of year. And then in about 4 3 months, like literally, that's when he fights, and then we'll see him again next year. Like that. That's exactly how it always works, and I think that may limit the way we look at him as a whole, which is funny to consider because he has already defended the belt more times than Khabib has. But we still look at it as if, oh, we there's a lot that we need to figure out in this meantime, um, until we know that Islam is the truth. And I think ultimately, the fact that you gave him the respect there to say that he it doesn't look like any of these contenders can beat him right now. I think what makes this division so spectacular is that we've seen in the last couple of fights between Dustin getting knocked out and then Justin getting knocked out. And like anything can happen. It just really matters the styles. And I think there's so many high level fighters in this weight class that honestly, we could live in a world where once again we assume Islam's going to win and he ends up being upset and now the belt is on someone else and then we're throwing this whole thing into a loop again and then it's assumed he's going to get right back and then either he does or he doesn't. Like lightweight in my opinion is so unpredictable regardless of us having this strong figurehead at the top. So I don't know what the fuck is going to happen during his title reign. I just feel like we're in some ways it hasn't even begun yet, right? Like this is how I'm sure during Volkanovski's reign at some point we felt this way too, but like I just feel like genuinely it's always been looked at as like, yeah, Islam's really fucking good, but in this next one, this guy has this and this should show us this. And it's like he's passing all these tests with flying colors. Um, I think it's hard to have anyone favored over him. Obviously, I think that Armin rematch I'm certainly looking forward to. But honestly, either of these guys in the top five could be Islam Makhachev. Stylistically, you can make a case. It's not necessarily like, oh, this guy's unbeatable no matter what. Just throw the money in the hat. Yes, of course, there's always that everyone can win mentality, but I think at this division specifically, is what, in my opinion, is going to make Islam's reign even more impressive. Is that either of these guys coming up, you could look at as legitimate contenders because the way they beat each other. But then the guy at the top is just kicking them all down and throwing them off the ladder. God damn it. Islam is that dude, bro. And I think he's going to be a champ for a while. I just hope we get a great amount of fights to see his greatness because I think we still don't really understand the full of it.
Yeah, I wanted to like reiterate what I was trying to say. Like I do think I was saying more like his time is now because there's going to be a lot of guys leaving. Like I was saying, like we really don't know what Oliveira, what his situation is, and what he wants to do. The fact that he just lost to Armand kind of puts him in like a 2 fight ladder before he could see Islam again. Gaethje might be one and done. He might. Justin could be done after this. Chandler, who the fuck knows with that dude? Max Holloway is not for this division. Dan Hooker, not ever seeing that the time of day. I don't think. Jalen Turner's kind of like back and forth with me. Who the fuck is the other one? Dariush, another old head that, like I wished for so long that fight would happen again, or happen really, and it just never happened. Like just so we were right there for Dariush to get one more shot. Another guy who almost felt like Bilal Muhammad type that just had so many fights that you felt like he should have already gotten a title shot, and then it came up to that one but except for Dariush, he finally had just one more obstacle, and then he's just been free falling since. So there's just a lot of guys that I feel are just going to fall right off. Bobby Green, another one. Rafael Dos Anjos, another one. Like all these guys I've named, they're in the top 15. All these guys, I don't think in 2 years are even going to be in the top 15. So we're going to see a whole new, division soon. And I think until I see that new division, until I see, Arman versus Islam 3, really, because I feel like there could be a third fight between them, that's when I'll see, okay, these guys are the next upcoming dudes. Like even seeing someone like, Rafael Fiziev, who I don't see at this moment beating Islam, but he can build himself to beating, the top guys again. Like I felt, dude, we were literally watching this at Buffalo Wild Wings, where I said, if this was a year from now, I'd pick Fiziev over Gaethje. I would. But because I feel Gaethje still has that little bit left in his prime, and Fiziev is still coming up, I feel like Gaethje has the edge here. Same thing with BSD versus Poirier. They rush these guys, and it's great. You're getting that, experience fighting the best of the best. But then, it kind of like sends you back down and makes your title reign last, or your chance to a title reign longer. And I guess they do that on purpose to kind of see if you're ready or not, and maybe give Islam more time at the belt and having him have, fight those top 5 guys more. But there's still like, Gamrot, Fiziev, Moicano, if you're really considering Moicano right now, even though like his last win was great. But he's so funny, and then a whole bunch of shit. And Arman's gonna be great, but then I think they'll somehow force Islam. Well, not force, but Islam will get his way and fight. Whoever the champion at welterweight is. Like we'll see that during the meantime while this division's just completely getting flipped over. So like right now, that's what I was saying. I think this is Islam's time, but I'm not saying that he's gonna be Khabib and it's unbeatable. No one will ever beat him. I just think at this current moment, there's like 5 or 6 guys that are just named in the top 10 or top 12 that need to will eventually leave within the next 2 years, and then we'll have a brand new division where Arman, BSD, Fiziev, and maybe even Moicano, who the fuck knows, and some guy we haven't even thought about yet that are in the top 5, and now we have a real division, and maybe even Charles, because Charles is still pretty young. So like that's why I think right now it's just a perfect time for Islam to build on the red jewels on his title belt. But I do think that eventually the competition will become incredibly close. I just think there's a lot of guys in the top 5 that are a little bit past their prime, and I think that's the turnover I'm waiting for. And I think I'm not taking away from Islam, and I know everyone else is, but until I see that, which may never happen, like that's what I'm more excited about. I'm not excited as excited, I should say, to see him fight Justin or Dustin. I'm excited to see him fight Charles again if Charles can build that ladder again and go back up. But I'm really excited to see Islam versus Arman. Like Arman is the future as well, and it could be like another Volk versus Holloway situation where these 2 guys could be champions if the other didn't exist. So that's what I'm really excited to see is those fights and the future of the lightweight division. And who the hell knows?
Bro, this is why I love being an MMA fan, right? Because we
That's
say
right.
all this, and then honestly, 6 months from now, we could close our eyes, be like, "Holy shit! Like this guy is a contender now. Like this guy didn't exist to us 6 months ago in this capacity, and now we're looking at him like someone that could win the belt. It's so crazy. It's so volatile, and it's my favorite part about being a fan, right? Just trying to get an idea of where the division's going to go, what division is going in the right direction compared to others. Like honestly, I never would have thought that we would have had a middleweight and light heavyweight resurgence about a year and a half ago. Like it felt like it was solidified that those divisions were kind of ass, and the way these things are playing out has been so fun to watch. So yeah, who knows what we're in store for? But god damn it, I know we're in store for it. So our preview is done, but it's only right that we move on to our favorite part of the show. It's time for our dynasty draft, and it's time for Sean to waffle about and go, huh, uh, uh,
I
uh.
completely
I
forgot this
haven't
was
thought
happening.
about this. I
I
haven't
haven't.
thought about this at all. I have the first pick, and I don't know who I'm taking. Wait, who is taking? Like, I already know. So whenever you're ready to start that process, you can, brother, because you're up first.
Damn, dude. I'm not gonna lie. I completely forgot that this was a thing.
Yeah, you had to
Um.
sign off. I saw as soon as you finished talking, you
Yeah, I
fucking
was like,
put
all
your
right.
pants. You were right. Yeah, you were ready to get out of here.
Shit.
So
All
just
right,
for the
hold on.
people at home, so Sean can rack his brain, we have 7 total fighters competing. I have 3. Sean has 4. I have Kevin Holland, Sean Strickland, and Islam Makhachev, while Sean has
That's
Grant
painful.
Dawson, Roman Kopylov, Jelton Almeida, and Dustin Poirier.
That's painful.
Why is that?
Um. because my main event's definitely getting walloped. Uh, there's two that I want, but I know I'm not gonna get the other.
So which one do you want more? That's the
Give
question.
me give me Almeida.
Who?
Give me Cesar Almeida.
Oh, Caesar.
I already have the other one.
I know that's why I was very confused with how convicted you were to ask for him. I thought it was Jelton for some reason. Hold on, wait. I'm
And I
missing.
know I'm losing the next guy, so that sucks.
Okay. R.I.P. Caesar. It's been fun. We've loved it. I think that's a great pick, TBH, despite none of us picking him. I think this is a great pick. Next up, why did I cross this out? How did that happen? I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
That's why I'm
I'm
confused.
sorry, man. My screen is broken, so we've been dealing with this for a while now, but I can't see shit. Uh, okay, so now I'm doing the Sean thing, aren't I? Where I don't know what the fuck to do with my life for some reason. There was another person that I was very excited about because just like you, I had that guy on my radar as well as this other guy. So I think it's only right that I lean heavily on the other guy. Um, give me, and let me make sure I'm not overlooking anybody as I do this. Yeah, let me just make sure I'm doing this accurately because I would hate to put myself in a shitty position. Okay, so give me Basil Hafez.
Uh-huh.
Is that the guy? May I
Yeah.
ask?
That was one of the two. Yep.
Oh, that was one of the two guys. Okay. And then for my second pick, give me Rude Boy Randy Brown.
Hmm. Okay. Give me that worked out for me. Give me Lima.
Nice. Okay. Let's do it. Andre Lima, it's in the chat. It is done. We have added to our dynasty rosters in this order Cesar Almeida to Sean's team. And then, of course, we've got Basil Hafez to my team, Randy Brown to my team, and then finally, Andre Lima to Sean's team. So, just like that, our dynasty escapades are all figured out. Sean, do you have anything to say as we close this beautiful episode covering UFC 302?
Man, I'm just very excited to keep going through these cards because every time, you know what's funny? I'm not gonna go on a rant here because we've already done this for 2 hours. I just feel that no matter what, when we get to these cards, there are some times where I feel a little underwhelmed with certain cards, and I feel like with this card, people can find it a little underwhelming. I find the next card even more underwhelming, but
Mhm.
I always find it funny
Hey, it's in a
because
crowd. Don't. It's not Hellscape. We
it's
we
not.
should be happy. But there's
Yes,
there's also 14 fights. So
yes.
what the fuck are you guys doing?
I am excited, and I always find it funny because these are always the cards or moments too where you look back at these cards and you'll be like, "Holy shit! I forgot that this dude was a freaking prelim. Holy shit!" Like
On
you
this
know when you,
card.
yeah, and when these guys become champions, you look back at certain cards and like you can see, but these cards, yes, you have guys that are like were supposed to be great and didn't really pan out, but have been in the UFC a long time. And you got guys still building their way up on the first or second card, or first second fight of this card, third fight. Like these are those type of fights. Where you could look at Jalton Almeida being a featured prelim and being like, man, remember before he became a champion, like shit like that, or even Romanov, or just there's so much that I love about these cards, and I can't wait. Like every single card I get so excited for, and even the Hellscape ones where you always come in, man. This card, I'm not gonna lie to you, could be trash, and I'm like, I'm kind of excited about it because even while these guys don't mean anything right now, the reason I love the UFC so much is because in a year from now they may be the biggest talking point of the year, and we can look back at how dumb we fucking were on camera when we were picking against that person. And that's why I love this game so much, that it's like no matter what, my opinion of every fight changes. Like I could look in Islam and be like, I don't see a path to Islam losing, and all of a sudden Dustin, who's 0-2 in title fights somehow wins, or continues to solidify Islam, and then all of a sudden he loses down the road. That's why I love the sport. No matter if you're a long tenured champion, your day will come. Or if you were the highest prospect to ever come out of the UFC, your day will come. Mickey Gall versus CM Punk, your day will come for both of them. Like there's so much that we could have seen, and there's so much to still happen in this game. The UFC is far, 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 far away from ever being towards the end, and I can't wait to unpack it with you, brother.
Wow, bro, that was beautifully emotional there. For you to not be going anywhere with it, like there was no question attached. That was very vulnerable of you. So I just want to say that was amazing, bro. I love that, and I couldn't agree with you more, man. That's why I love doing this show. I love being a part of it with you. So thank you for being along for the ride in that way. And we're going to continue to keep killing it, motherfuckers. So make sure that you're tuned in. Make sure you're following the brand OTS Media on all social media platforms. Remember to tell your fam that you fucking love them, but most importantly, don't be silly. Jump the gilly, because when Dustin Poirier wins the title via first round guillotine choke, motherfucker, I don't want to see no more memes about that gilly, because it's going to be solidified in the Hall of Fame, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, that's what my heart wants. We'll see you all next week.